It was just after 3 a.m. when I saw him. The highway was empty, a dark ribbon stretching endlessly between towns that hadn't seen life in years. My rig hummed beneath me, steady and familiar, its headlights cutting through fog thick enough to look solid. I'd been driving since sunset, hauling 30 tons of steel across the Midwest. I wasn't tired exactly, but there's a kind of exhaustion that creeps in around this hour, where reality feels thin, like you're not really there anymore. That's when I saw the man. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, maybe a reflector on a signpost or the shimmer of heat haze on the asphalt. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't a sign, and it wasn't heat. It was a person, standing still, right on the shoulder of the road. He wasn't moving. Not hitchhiking, not signaling for help. Just standing perfectly still, like he'd been placed there. His face was pale in the beams of my headlights, and I swear, even from 50 feet away, his eyes were locked on mine. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, told myself not to stare. I'd seen weird things before: drunks wandering highways, lost souls, even people trying to fake accidents for help. You learn to keep your eyes forward and drive on. But as I passed him, he turned his head, slowly, deliberately. And I swear to God, I could hear something scrape against the side of my caboo. A faint dragging sound, like metal on metal. Even though he never moved from his spot. I drove another mile before I looked into my mirrors. Empty highway, no taillights, no figure. But that's when I saw it. There were handprints on my trailer door. Clear, wet handprints. Long fingers that stretched far too wide to be human. The CB radio crackled for the first time in an hour. A static hiss, then a voice. "You saw him too, didn't you?" I froze. It wasn't a voice I recognized, low, dry, almost like someone whispering through sand. I grabbed the mic anyway. "Who's this?" The voice came again. "You passed him. Don't stop." I dropped the mic. The static whined and then went silent. A part of me thought it had to be a prank. Another driver messing with me. Maybe someone on the same route. But I checked the GPS. I hadn't seen another vehicle in nearly 30 miles. When I stopped at the rest area near mile 62, the air felt wrong. No wind, no bugs, no sound at all. Even the security lights were flickering like a dying heartbeat. As I walked around to check the trailer, the handprints were gone. But something else was there. Smears. Long, greasy streaks running from one side to the other, like something had climbed up and over the steel doors, dragging its limbs. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the cab with the engine idling, eyes fixed on the mirrors, waiting for something, anything, to move. At 3:12 a.m., the CB came alive again. He's walking. He's on the road again. I froze. And then, faintly, through the fog, my headlights caught movement. Someone was walking down the center of the highway. It wasn't until I saw the clothes that I realized how wrong it was. They weren't tattered or dirty. They were the same clothes I was wearing. The same jacket. The same jeans. Even the same reflective stripe on the vest I'd thrown on at the last gas stop. I couldn't breathe. The figure turned toward me, and for a moment, I thought it was me. But his face, my face, was stretched too long, the eyes pure black, and the mouth smiling too wide. He began walking faster, then running, straight toward the truck. I slammed the shifter into gear and hit the gas. The engine roared, tires screamed, and the figure vanished beneath the fog. But when I looked into the mirror again, he was clinging to the back of the trailer. His hands, those two long fingers, were gripping the steel like hooks. I could see them scraping against the doors, sparks flying in the rear camera feed. I drove faster. 90, 100. The wind howled. The cab shook, but the figure didn't fall off. He just smiled, that horrible stretched grin, and mouthed something I couldn't hear. Something that looked like my name. Then, in an instant, he was gone. Vanished. I didn't see him again that night, but I did hear him. Every time I pass a dark stretch of highway now, around that same hour, the CB crackles alive and a whisper says, "Don't stop." I took the rig to a wash bay outside Wichita. The guy spraying it down waved me over halfway through. He looked pale, shaking. He asked me if I'd hit anyone. I told him no. He didn't say a word, just pointed at the back of the trailer. When I stepped around, my stomach dropped. There were handprints again, dozens this time, layered on top of each other, and carved beneath them, etched deep into the steel, were the words, "I made it this far." I don't drive at night anymore, not after that. But sometimes, when I wake up just before dawn, I hear a voice outside the window whispering through the dark, "Keep driving." I travel for work, state to state, week after week, town after town. I'm a nurse, the kind that fills in for hospitals that can't keep staff. I've worked in big cities, tiny towns, and places you'd swear didn't exist until you looked them up. After a while, you stop thinking of home as a place. It's just wherever the bed is tonight. That night, home was room 7 at a forgotten little roadside motel off Highway 18. It was almost midnight when I pulled in. The sign said, "Rest easy in," but most of the letters were burned out, flickering a dull orange through the mist. The parking lot was cracked in half, swallowed by weeds. A lone vending machine buzzed near the lobby, spitting out more light than the building behind it. Inside, the clerk didn't look up when I came in. Old gray, eyes like wet gravel. He just slid a key across the counter and said, "You're the only one here tonight. Room 7's at the end. Don't use the mirror." He said it like he was talking about the weather. I thought he was joking, some small, town-eccentric thing. I even laughed a little. He didn't. The door creaked when I pushed it open, and the smell hit first, stale air, mildew, and something faintly sweet underneath, like old perfume. The room had one bed, one dresser, a TV that looked older than I was, and a mirror across from the bed. That mirror, it took up almost the entire wall. Framed in chipped gold paint, the glass was cloudy in the corners, and I could see faint fingerprints smudged across it like someone had pressed their hands there recently. I remembered what the clerk said. Don't use the mirror, but it's human nature to look. So I did. And for a moment, I froze, because the reflection wasn't right. Everything looked normal, same cheap wallpaper, same bed, but I wasn't standing where I should have been. My reflection was half a step closer, like it had moved before I did. I blinked, laughed it off, and told myself it was exhaustion. 36 hours awake will do that to you. But as I turned away, I heard something, a soft tap. Like a fingernail against glass, I spun back around. Nothing. Still, that feeling, that sense that I wasn't alone, hung heavy in the air, thicker than the smell of damp carpet. The bathroom light flickered as I brushed my teeth. When I leaned over to spit, I caught movement behind me in the mirror. Just a flicker, like someone walking past the edge of the frame. I whipped around. The room was empty. That's when I noticed something new. The mirror over the sink had a hairline crack running right down the middle, one I knew hadn't been there when I came in. I leaned closer. It looked like it had come from inside the glass, spider webbing outward. And then I saw it, faint but clear. A smudge on the other side of the mirror, a handprint. Only it wasn't mine. It was longer, thinner, and the fingers curved upward, as if whoever made it was hanging upside down on the other side. I backed out of the bathroom, grabbed my phone, and tried to call the front desk. No service. When I looked up, the large mirror across from the bed was black, not reflective anymore. Just pure black, swallowing the light. And then, something moved inside it. At first, I thought it was smoke drifting through the reflection. Then I realized it had eyes. They were open too wide, almost glowing from within, watching me. The surface of the mirror rippled, like water disturbed by a touch. I took a step back. My reflection didn't move. It just stood there, smiling. That same frozen smile you see in people who are pretending they're fine when they're not. Then it raised its hand, slow, deliberate, and pressed it against the glass. I could hear it this time. The faint squeal of skin against the mirror. The air turned cold. I could see my breath in the room. The smell of rot filled my lungs, thick and heavy. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The reflection's mouth began to move. It whispered something I couldn't hear. Then again louder, until I understood. Let me out. The surface of the mirror bulged outward. Not just an illusion. The glass actually stretched, as if something was pressing against it from the other side. I screamed, stumbled backward, and hit the dresser. The TV crashed to the floor, static filling the air. The reflection started clawing at the glass from inside. I could hear the faint cracks spreading, splintering outward like veins. I bolted for the door. When I got outside, the hallway lights were dim, flickering every few seconds. I looked toward the front office. The clerk's window was dark. But room 7's window was still lit. Only it wasn't empty anymore. Through the thin curtain, I could see myself. Sitting on the bed, smiling. I stood frozen in the hall for what felt like an eternity before the lights went out completely. When they came back on, the window was empty. The reflection, whatever it was, had left the room. I found the clerk slumped in his chair, head tilted to the side like he was sleeping. But when I touched his shoulder, he was cold. His eyes were open, wide with terror, and the front of the counter was smeared with black fingerprints, those same elongated marks I'd seen on the glass. Behind him, the wall was lined with old, dusty photographs. Guests, couples, families, all smiling in front of their rooms. And in every single picture, there was a faint reflection in the window behind them. A dark figure with eyes too wide. Room 7 had the most recent picture, taken last week, and the person in it looked exactly like me. The police found nothing unusual. No fingerprints, no body, no trace of anyone else in that motel. They said the clerk died of natural causes. They said stress and exhaustion made me hallucinate. Maybe they're right. But every now and then, when I check into a new place on another dark highway, I glance at the mirrors first. And sometimes, just for a second, I see a face smiling back that doesn't move when I do. It's always smiling, and it's always me. I still can't watch the footage. Not the raw clips. Not the final cut we uploaded before everything went wrong. People online still think it's fake. One of those overproduced, urban exploration horror stunts that pop up on YouTube around Halloween. But I know what I saw, what I heard, and what followed us back. It started as a simple weekend trip. 4 of us, me, Mason, Amber, and Liam, had a channel called After Dark Discoveries. We'd been exploring abandoned places for almost a year, ghost towns, forgotten mines, collapsed factories. Nothing too dangerous. Until that night. We were heading west on Highway 72, when Liam spotted the sign. EXT29 County Road 13, no services. It wasn't on the GPS. The road didn't even show up on satellite view, just a stretch of trees and darkness where the map pixelated. Mason, being the thrill junkie he was, laughed and said, "Perfect spot for a finale." The air changed the second we left the highway. It got colder, not like a chill, but like the air itself was thinner, stretched too tight. The forest on both sides leaned in, branches arching overhead like ribs. We drove for 15 minutes before we saw it. A house, or what was left of one, sitting deep off the road. 2 stories high, black windows, front door hanging crooked. There was no mailbox, no driveway, just dirt and silence. Amber whispered, "Why does it look like it's waiting for us?" Mason started filming the exterior first. His flashlight caught the porch, where the boards were split and clawed, like something had tried to dig through the wood. Liam did his usual intro. "Welcome back to After Dark Discoveries. Tonight, we're checking out what locals call the Silent House. No one knows who built it, no one lives here, and people who stop here, well, they don't stick around long." When he said that, I noticed something on the camera's audio feed. A faint, rhythmic clicking noise in the background. Like someone tapping on glass, but there were no windows left intact. The first thing I remember was the smell. Rotting wood, wet dirt, and underneath it all, something metallic, like blood. We moved through the living room, furniture half rotted. Walls covered in old wallpaper that looked like veins. Every step echoed too long. Like the house wasn't just empty, it was listening. Amber found a child's shoe near the fireplace, still tied, still clean. That's when the power on Mason's camera glitched. The feed went static for 3 seconds, then came back, except the timecode jumped forward by 30 minutes. He swore he hadn't stopped recording. We didn't realize then that something had already taken that time from us. Liam went first, camera light sweeping across the staircase. The steps groaned like they were breathing. Halfway up, we heard a door slam somewhere above. Mason yelled, "Who's there?" Silence. Then footsteps. Behind us. I spun around. Light flashing across the hall, but no one was there. Still, the sound kept coming closer, circling. Like something moving in loops between the walls. When we reached the top landing, the air was freezing. Our breath fogged the lenses. There was a mirror, cracked, crooked, the same kind of old gold frame as the one in the motel story, hanging by a single nail. Amber pointed her camera toward it. The reflection didn't match the room. In the mirror there was a figure standing at the end of the hall, tall, thin, head tilted, like it was studying us. We turned. Nothing there. When the flashlight swung back, the mirror shattered. We should have left. We should have walked out right then. But Mason was obsessed. He kept saying, "We're this close to something real. Just one more shot." The basement door was locked with a rusted chain. We could hear faint scratching on the other side, like nails dragging across stone. Amber begged us not to open it. Liam, stupid and fearless, laughed and said, "Maybe it's our channel mascot." When the chain broke, the air that came out wasn't just cold. It was wrong. It smelled like old graves. The stairs went down farther than the house should have allowed. We counted 15 steps, then 20, then 30. By the time we reached the bottom, the light from upstairs was gone. There were drawings carved into the walls. Circles, eyes, spirals, hundreds of them. And something written over and over in different handwriting. Isten Xasil. Itis al orduan tu raom. The camera battery dropped from 80% to 1% in seconds. The screen flickered, and in that split second before it died, the viewfinder showed 5 figures instead of 4. Only fragments of the footage survived. Static, distorted faces, flashes of movement that don't line up with reality. But the last clear thing caught on camera was this Amber standing in the corner, whispering, "It's behind me." Her voice echoed as if she were standing in a vast, empty space. Then the feed cuts. The next shot is of the living room again. The camera's angle is low, facing the front door. You can see me, covered in dust, shaking. And in the doorway, someone or something is standing there. The figure looks human until it moves. Then it bends. Bones cracking, limbs folding inward like paper. It crawls across the floor toward the lens and whispers something. The words are distorted, but when slowed down, you can hear it. It's your turn to listen. Then the video ends. When the police finally found the house, it was empty. No bodies, no gear, not even the van. Just the cameras neatly stacked on the porch, still recording. I don't remember how I got out. They found me 3 miles away, walking barefoot along the highway, clothes torn, muttering something about walls breathing. Every night since I've heard that clicking sound again, faint but constant, from inside my apartment walls. I think it's still listening, waiting for me to go quiet, waiting for me to stop talking so it can finish the story. They say midnight shifts change you. Maybe that's true. You start hearing things in the static, whispers that sound like people you used to know. I've been a police dispatcher for almost 15 years. Night shifts, mostly. There's something about the silence of an empty building at 3 a.m. that keeps you sharp, or used to. Now I'm not sure what's real anymore. The night started quiet. Just me, a cup of stale coffee, and the steady hum of equipment. The radios crackled every now and then, usual stuff. A bar fight, a traffic stop, a loose dog on Maple Street. Then came the call. Unit 9 responding. Possible 1054 off Highway 11. That's a code for a dead body. I checked the log. But there was no Unit 9 on duty. Hadn't been for years. I called it back. Unit 9 repeat transmission, silence. Then a faint reply. It's cold out here. The line went dead. I sat there for a long minute, staring at the call ID. The number wasn't local. It wasn't anything. Just a string of zeros. I tried to shake it off. Maybe interference from another county, or someone pranking the frequency. Happens all the time. But then it came again. this time through the main dispatch channel. Dispatch, this is Officer Halbrook. Request backup at mile marker 31. The name made my stomach drop. Halbrook had been dead since 1997, killed in the line of duty. I checked the logs anyway. No recent call from that stretch of highway. No reason for anyone to be out there. The weird part, the old case file said Halbrook's last transmission was exactly the same. Word for word. Request backup at mile marker 31, and he'd been found there, radio still in his hand. I decided to play back the call, thinking maybe it was an archived clip glitching through the system. But when I queued it up, I heard something new underneath the voice, a whisper. I turned up the volume. Static, feedback, and beneath it, a second voice. Fainter, raspier. Don't follow him. The unmistakable sound of breathing. Long, slow, and close to the mic. I checked every line, every repeater. Nothing transmitting. The system showed all channels idle. And then, every radio in the room turned on at once. Static flooded the speakers, hissing so loud I thought my eardrums would burst. Through the noise I heard voices. Dozens of them. Overlapping. Some screaming, some laughing, and one that said my name. Angela. That's when the lights went out. When the emergency power kicked in, the radios were silent again. The room felt heavier, like the air had weight. The phone rang. No caller ID. I answered, hand shaking. County dispatch. Nothing. Then. You never logged me out. The line clicked, and an old call file popped up on the screen. Halbrook, Fry Fiarton Bay 14597 Final State Use Kaye. I tried to close it. The mouse wouldn't move. The system froze, and the speakers started playing audio from that night 28 years ago. You could hear gunfire. Then Officer Halbrook shouted, "He's not alone!" A scream. Then static. And then a voice I'd never heard before, deep, wet, almost animal, keep the line open. When the clip ended, all the monitors showed the same message in red text, stay on THEFRQENCY. I must have blacked out for a minute, because the next thing I remember is hearing footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Rhythmic. I thought maybe an officer had come by. But when I checked the door camera, there was nothing on the screen. Just darkness. Still, the footsteps got louder, closer. Then the door handle turned. I reached for my flashlight, heart pounding, and the door creaked open an inch. Cold air poured in. And then I saw it, a shape standing in the hall. Broad shoulders, the outline of a uniform, a badge glinting faintly in the emergency light. He lifted his radio to his mouth. But when he spoke, the sound didn't come from the hallway. It came from inside the dispatch speaker. Backup requested. Mile marker 31. Then the hallway went dark again. At exactly 2:44 a.m., all lines opened simultaneously. Every speaker. Every scanner, even the old analog unit that hasn't worked in a decade. And through all of them, a voice whispered in unison, "Wa found him." The temperature dropped instantly. Frost formed on the inside of the windows. The lights flickered, and for a moment I saw them. A room full of officers standing shoulder to shoulder in silence. Their faces pale, eyes hollow, uniforms rotted and torn. They all turned toward me. And in the static, I heard my own voice come through the radio. Unit 12, responding to a 10-4 at mile marker 31. But I wasn't holding the mic. They found me the next morning, unconscious at my desk. Every system in the dispatch room fried, melted from the inside. The recording log showed one final call placed at 2:44 a.m., a female voice reporting a dead officer on Highway 11. The caller ID matched my personal phone. But my phone was sitting on the desk the whole time. I've tried to move on. Took a job in another county, day shift only. But sometimes the scanners still catch faint channel bleed from nearby stations. Bursts of static that form words just for a moment. Last night, I heard it again. Keep the line open.